first. You've got to hand it to Labor, don't you? If nothing else, they can push a big lie. And the bigger the lie, the less factually based it is, the better. While the rest of us know today, the 11th of November, is the day we remember the fallen. If you're a Labor true believer, November 11, 1975, was the day Australian democracy died, at least temporarily. And 50 years on, the Labor left still maintains its rage over the Whitlam dismissal. Never one to let the truth get in the way of his uni student era hatreds, the Prime Minister delivered a speech last night at Old Parliament House that has today been reported as, quote, an extraordinary attack, a divisive intervention on the dismissal and a scorching speech.
Make no mistake, November the 11th, 1975 was not a constitutional crisis. It was a partisan political ambush. There was no real precedent and no legitimate pretext. The dismissal was a calculated plot, hatched by conservative forces which sacrificed conventions and institutions in the pursuit of power.
I mean, ambush, calculated plot? I mean, this is the stuff of conspiracy theories. But he didn't stop.
And the result of the election that followed does not wash away any of that.
What, he now thinks the Australian people were in on it? That voters were part of the plot? I mean, the left love to rewrite history when the electoral reality can't be buried, can't be glossed over. After being sent to the polls with the dismissal of Whitlam, voters got their chance to deliver a verdict on 3 years of Whitlam chaos. And you know what? They elected Malcolm Fraser's Liberal Party in a landslide. Now, talk about an inconvenient truth, Prime Minister. For all the "we was robbed" stuff and spleen on display from you last night, in a speech I have to say that no Prime Minister worthy of the name should ever have made, the reality is that Fraser's win was the second biggest two-party preferred vote in Australia's history. Rather than vote Gough back in, the Australian electorate, they buried him. But to the man who once said he lives to fight Tories, this was all a giant conspiracy.
The opposition orchestrated a parliamentary gridlock over the budget and then secretly prevailed upon the Governor-General to break it by sacking the Prime Minister.
This petulant outburst over events half a century old now shows how fake is the cultivated image of the middle-of-the-road Prime Minister. Yet the fact that most Australians' folk memory of the dismissal probably is that it was some kind of vice-regal coup shows the power of the left's myth-making, plus the left's ongoing hypocrisy. The Senate had a constitutional right to reject money bills, as Labor has always asserted when it was in opposition. Indeed, Gough Whitlam himself made this very point on the floor of the House of Representatives. And the opposition were perfectly entitled to force a bad government to an early election, especially after a string of scandals, particularly the infamous Kemlani loans affair, a dodgy attempt to classify a $4 billion loan repayable over 20 years as supposedly for temporary purposes, made worse by the sackings that followed of the Treasurer Jim Cairns and the Resources Minister Rex Connor for pursuing this loan after their legal authority to do so was withdrawn. Then there was the attempt to raise Labor Party funds, yes, that's right, party funds from the Iraqi government, and the biggest 3-year increase in the size of the federal government in peacetime history, from 19% to 25% of GDP. Inflation back then was running at 17%. It's around 3% now, and you know it's hurting. So imagine the household pain then at 17%. And yet it's hardly surprising that economic management was such a casualty, given Whitlam had 3 different treasurers within 12 months. Now, I didn't hear any of that last night in the Prime Minister's speech as he tried to rewrite history, announcing that his government will be spending your money to erect a statue in Whitlam's honour in Canberra. As I said, Labor is shameless when it comes to pushing the big lie. And they have no shame in hypocrisy either, then or now. Now, for the record, Here is Gough Whitlam on the 25th of August 1970 as opposition leader speaking on the budget in reply. This is on the floor of the House of Reps. And he says, and I quote, "Let me make it clear at the outset that our opposition to this budget is no mere formality. We intend to press our opposition by all available means on all related measures in both houses. If the motion's defeated," he said, "we will vote against the bills here and in the Senate. Our purpose is to destroy this budget and to destroy the government which has sponsored it." Now, earlier on June 12, 1970, Whitlam had said, and I quote, "Any government which is defeated by the Parliament on a major taxation bill should resign. This bill will be defeated in another place. The government should then resign." So, okay if Labor threatens it, but a political ambush when it's done to them. But that's not the worst of Labor's hypocrisy, if you know your political history. When that same bill that Whitlam said should be defeated once it reached the Senate, when it arrived in the Senate, the then Senate opposition leader, the one Lionel Murphy, later, of course, the Attorney General for Whitlam and ending up, of course, as a High Court judge, well, he got to his feet and he tabled this in the Hansard and he said, and I quote, "Here is a list of the measures of an economic or financial nature, including taxation and appropriation bills, which have been opposed by this opposition by a vote in the Senate since 1950. Now, wait for it. Lionel Murphy's list ran to 169 separate occasions where the Labor Party had opposed money bills in the Senate. So why the manufactured outrage when Fraser's Liberal Party did to Whitlam what Labor had already done itself in the Senate to the Conservatives 169 times? I'll tell you why, it's simple. Elected on a promise of being new and modern and progressive, the Whitlam government was a train wreck. The Gough experiment had failed and Gough knew it. He knew that he'd lose any election, hence he tried to portray what was a valid parliamentary tactic as an assault on democracy. What this 50-year anniversary confirms, what the Prime Minister's speech last night put up in lights, is that the Labor Party's sense of victimhood is real and it is absolutely ready to use conspiracy claims to explain away its own failings, then and now. Maybe the Governor-General could have warned Whitlam that unless he agreed to an election, he might have to exercise his reserve powers. But that risked a petulant Whitlam trying to have the Governor-General sacked, involving, of course, the Queen in the crisis, or even to have him arrested, as Paul Keating has just said should have happened. With money to keep the government about to run out, and with neither Malcolm Fraser backing down nor Whitlam advising an election, the dismissal of the obdurate Prime Minister and the commissioning of a caretaker who could secure supply so that the people could have the election and the people could be the decision makers was the best way to resolve the crisis. Since 1975, the Senate has never blocked a supply bill, although the constitutional power to do so remains in place to this very day. And Labor's never, ever tried to remove it. Whenever Labor cries foul over the removal of Whitlam, just remember this truth. It wasn't the Governor-General that removed him. It was the Australian people that threw Whitlam out. In 1975, when they elected Malcolm Fraser, and in 1977, when Whitlam was once again on the ballot paper. Not once, but twice. And that's what really, really eats away at Labor.
Been sleeping, brought down to your knees. We've lost a lot of living in the dark of these 3 years. We can look towards the future and the way things ought to be. Turn on the lights, Australia. It's up to you and me. Turn on the lights and we'll live again. Turn on the lights for Australia. It's up to you and me.